Today I did some cool stuff. Let's start at the beginning. So Maya, I blocked out the Atlassian. Let's hide one of these. Shift H, Control H, there we go. So let's make it a full. So this is my main design. I drew this yesterday. I drew some designs yesterday, and I modified it slightly today. When I actually made the real block out, and this is the real block out. It's not to scale, obviously, because the person isn't big enough to be to fit in it. But I'm testing out. I thought I'll make it on a small scale and then enlarge it. I'm testing out just how it looks and whatnot, and I'm pretty happy with how it is right now. There's some shading artifacts, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's actually turned out. Here we go. So yeah, and let's describe what it is. So the wings, I call them wings. I've set out some things that it'll probably be able to do in the engine. I'm going to separate them. I'm going to export them separately, and so I can have the Atlassian effectively transform into different forms. That depends on what it's doing. So if it's in flight mode, so all the wings will be at the either side, facing backward. So like that way, we're facing backward as in flight mode. One thing I do want to say actually is the shape is based on a swan, because it's quite majestic, and it I don't know. I tested out some forms, and the main body is based on a swan, and then this was this kind of backwardly facing wings were from Stargate, the ship called the O'Neill or something. I don't quite know, but it's Stargate. It's an Asgard ship called it's O'Neill class Asgard, but yeah. So I based these wings off of that reference, and I feel like actually let's just continue, and then I'll come back to it. So yeah, so there's flight mode, and then there's like neutral mode, which I've shown earlier, which is where the ship returns back to its normal position. I can play and show you it actually. So this is it in game, what it'll probably look like. I tested around with the camera lag, so you can see the back end of it as well when you're at full speed. But when you go into neutral mode, so this is neutral mode, and the ship will transform, and this is when it returns back to a neutral position on its own, whereas you're already in the menu. So there's the neutral position, and the wings will face slightly differently, and then when you come out, it will transform back into flight mode. So where are we? Neutral mode. Okay, so let's go into Maya. So neutral mode will be top wings facing towards the sky, bottom wings facing how would it do this? Okay, so they'll be facing upward like that, but not like that. They'll be like this. That would be like neutral mode, and these ones will be facing downward like that, and then that one downward as well. So like that. That would be neutral mode. So, and there's like thrusters coming out. This. What is that? Okay. That's a bit of a thing I didn't mean to make, but yeah. So that'd be like neutral mode. Let's return everything back to its original locations. Cool. And then there's detaching the paygo. So that would be like, forget these. Gonna have to do it separately. And my phone is going off. But let's turn this off. So neutral, detaching the paygo would be like that. You'll have these facing downward, like that. So, and then this little area is where it's kind of like a cargo bay slash where the paygo attaches. So they'll come down slightly, and then they'll jank back up. So they'll jank down as like a mechanical lever has just been released, and then they'll come back up to normal flight mode, and probably enter neutral, because at that point, well actually no, probably go back into flight mode. And then I've got after that, if you I'm going to change this actually, then enter neutral mode if you swap to the paygo. So yeah, if you swap to the paygo, then I'll enter neutral mode. So yeah, by separating out these meshes when I export them, I can use their pivot, which is wherever I want it to be. So like here in the center, and then I can just rotate around that center, and as you've seen, rotating around that center just brings them up or brings them down. I can do that in the engine in Blueprint. So, and also with the wings, what I was going to have the wings rotate or something. I think I'll just have the wings face backward, and there's this thing, because it is named after the Greek titan Atlas, because Atlas was tasked to hold up the Earth, whereas the Atlassian is meant to be like one of the first ships that humanity is kind of made to travel extreme distances across like galaxies and such. So it's meant to be like a figurehead of Earth, and this ball at the back, this globe, is meant to represent Earth, but it's also it also carries some function. So it'll be spinning, or like in a whatever way it'll spin, and these things will likely spin around it as well, like that. And then I was thinking about having this sort of spin as well, so it gives like a parallaxing sort of effect. And that's a common I think technique in certain things. In sci-fi ships, you sometimes see things like spinning like that, because in physics, well, I'm not great at physics, but like in physics, you would do things like that to create artificial gravity. So yeah, I think it just kind of symbolizes forces, like forces at work, by doing things like that. So that can spin. That's why I made that little bit at the back, because it's symbolic, and it can provide like a functionality aspect. It's the visual storytelling aspect of people can look at this, and I was thinking of having a material applied to it that sort of pans around and such, that mimics Earth's sort of parallaxing with the clouds and the islands. So when the Earth spins, it would seem similar to that. and it might give a bit you know, a bit more visual storytelling aspect to that. Like they can think of this, if I were to make it have like a Fresnel effect and have subsurface scattering, which I intend to, then it would seem like it's some sort of mystical, sort of like mystical, magical, science fiction, technologically super advanced type matter, I suppose. So I want people to fill in the blanks with their mind with that, with the material that I make from that, and with all of these moving parts. Yeah. So, oh yeah, something's really cool with this is I unintentionally made it so that if you turn off the lights, it looks like an insignia. It looks like it could be the official insignia of like a military or some such. Like that looks like it's very much. It looks like an eye watching people. So it may seem rather sinister, but at the same time it looks like something's like a globe is being held up there, which may more represent Earth. And then this way, it seems more like a flower opening up, so maybe signifying like spreading our seeds throughout the galaxy and like flourishing as the human race. So I unintentionally did that. However, whilst I was modelling it through the block out, I became mindful of that after I turned off the shading, and yeah, I felt it was quite meaningful. I started writing a bit of the story. Not really the story, more like how a playthrough might go. And I feel that's important for determining how I'm actually going to make each element come together in a linear playthrough, because that's what this experience is going to be. It's going to be rather linear, but also focus on the themes of discovery. So it will offer a little bit of freedom within the space that you're in, like the city and whatnot. So it's like the player's journey, but also it's a guided one by both the AI and me, the developer. I had some I had some problems, and I'll come back to those after I show in engine. I also added a plugin which allows me to use a gamepad with UMG. So if I were to hook this up, and there's going to be audio, so I'll not talk whilst that audio's going. But this is me using the gamepad. That's me using the gamepad with UMG, and that's just by a plugin that's specific to the project and not the engine. You can install it in the engine, but I decided not to because I want it to be portable as possible. I also have found in the project settings that you can go to user interface and change a cursor, which I'm going to do. I'm going to make a custom cursor and such, and you can see here that I've planned out project thumbnail, game icon and game splash screen. So, oh, there's something that I want to fix. Far distance shadows. But anyway, so this is me testing out let's reduce the speed, testing out the sizes of the ships. So there's like the initial, scaled up a tiny bit, and this is scaled up quite a bit, and this is sort of how I want it to be. If I were to simulate and give the city, then you can kind of see how large it is in relation to the city. If I were to play it, this is a destructible mesh, Atlassian, which I have forgotten to take off the thingybob. But anyway, oh, now it's stuck. Let's try that again. There we go. So if I fly through the city, you can see that it won't fit. It will crash into things, which is what I want. I mean, the spaces between the city, the block elements, are going to be even smaller. But so they're going to be even smaller. But I want it so that the Pago can go through. So I'm going to have to be mindful of the size of the Pago. But the Atlassian can't go through. The Atlassian is more just for flying overhead, like this. It's more just for flying overhead. And then you drop the Pago, which also seems to break the destructible mesh. There's the destructible mesh. But yeah, so now I'm the Pago, which can fly through. So yeah, I tested out destructible meshes as well, which probably not going to have with the Atlassian or the Pago. I'm probably just going to, because I planned a gameplay element where you shoot the destructible mesh, which allows the Pago, which allows the Atlassian to go through. So there's only a hole small enough for the Pago and not the Atlassian. So the problems and such. I'll go to those problems first and then evaluate. Well, this is part of the evaluation, but curvature problem parameter in Maya. So with these wings, I modeled them out flat, and then I curved them. Now, for testing, for purposes, I'm going to save this real quick. I'll show you what problem I had after this saves. So, effectively, I couldn't change a parameter to make the curve actually appear after I made this a flat plane. So I modeled it out as a flat plane, went up to deform, nonlinear, bend, and here you have bend and curvature. And I set that to 180, for example, and it says down here, handle curvature is locked or connected and cannot be modified. However, it can be after I checked the documentation, Maya documentation. If you press T, you get then you get these I don't really know what they're called, but they're like modifiable things, handles, and you can let's bring this over, and you can modify them by holding down middle mouse and bending it. Here you can see it's bending. But yeah, so I fixed that by doing that. What do you do to solve them? Well, that's what I did. Landing gear reference. I was going to have a landing gear. I didn't know how to model them, really. Let's go to block 3, main body, cube, don't know where landing. Okay, well, apparently they're not there. There they are. Okay, so Shift H, hide. So here is one with reference, these landing gears. Let's get to here. I decided to have it flat but slightly curved. After I had another one which was like that. That was my first attempt without reference, and then I decided to model something with reference, really basic, because it's just the block out. I needed basic form. That's what it would be like, and I didn't really like that. It looks like something from a really old game. I can't remember can't remember the name, but it looks really kind of bad. Then I decided, actually, why am I modelling landing gears? They'll never land. So I took them out. It looks way cooler without landing gears. I was having an idea that they tuck in, and then I was going to animate that, but I'm not going to do that because they're never going to land. It doesn't really matter. And it takes away from the form, which I don't really like. X-axis import. I do this every single time I start a new project that's 3D. It's literally just it's just, if I go to the blockout, so this is off to the right. The player in Unreal, the positive x-axis is the forward direction. So I exported it and the Atlassian was facing right all the time. So I just had to rotate it and now it's facing forward. Importing crash. Whenever I imported it, it would explode and it would crash. But I got around that by, if I go to Art, Test Models, Import, there's the new one. I just imported it a second time because I think I was overwriting this one and it just kept crashing whenever I did, so I just imported a second model. So yeah, that's how I fixed those problems. How does what I did today progress me towards meeting my short-term and long-term aims of progressing my skills through visual storytelling and technical art? Today was very much visual storytelling. As I said about the ship, how I oops, using my controls, how I modeled this specific area for that reason, for the symbolic nature, and yeah, well, the symbolic nature and how I want the player to form the meaning within their mind, their own meaning for it, and their own explanation about why the engineering on this ship was made in a way that was used in a way that made this odd contraption type of thing on something that maybe would be used for military purposes, maybe other purposes. Like why would they need it? And I want the player to sort of figure that out both on their own, but also with a bit of help with the materials, some like visual aids with the materials as well, and how it changes throughout gameplay, because I want when you engage warp, it's gonna change color. Maybe the subsurface color will lerp towards the surface color, and maybe it will become a full and bright and like emissive sort of object. Maybe that would show that it's at like full power or some such, or that it's straining and such. Same with these rotational things. And same with the wings as well. I want it to show that there's clearly different modes, and there's moving pieces and mechanical pieces that that are actually going on with this ship. That it's not just like a static object, but it's actually something that flies, and there's reasons for why it's shaped like it is. There's reasons for why it moves in the way it does, and such. And I feel like this ship as well is becoming, with me using the techniques from the Nomon prop modeling video, and I'm planning on, this is only the block out, I'm planning on making a high poly and then making a low poly, and baking the high poly onto the low poly. So I feel like this model right here, the block out model, is quite quite a step up from all of the other models that I've made so far. And I feel like it's when I've got the high poly and the low poly, and I've baked it and I've pushed that sort of technical boundary for myself in rendering lots more with actually being a lot less with a lot less poly count, then I feel like my portfolio will really start to shine, especially with the game elements that I've got in here. The destructible mesh, is that so? Yeah, so I'll try and test the destructible mesh and just show you what is going on. There you go. So it destroys itself, and because the destructible mesh is actually part of the blueprint itself, all of the pieces move independently. Whereas if I wanted it to be something different, then I'd probably have the mesh sort of just follow the transforms of the origin, the scene root of the blueprint, and then make it stop following the transforms once it's destroyed. But then again, they won't be flying around if it's destroyed. And I did say that I probably don't want it to be in the actual game. But it sort of depends on if I can manage to get it so that it accurately does pieces of the Atlassian fall off. I wouldn't want it to be fully falling off. Perhaps I can do that in a different way, like model out different pieces, and if you collide once, it does like a particle effect. It does a mesh particle effect, and sort of throws out some pieces based on hull integrity. And if you repair it, then those pieces come back in quotes. Yeah, I could do stuff like that, just like nuts and bolts and whatnot, like little pieces, not huge pieces. One thing to note as well is that this is the block out, but the actual Atlassian needs to be kind of like destroyed and battered up a little bit, because the story element is that you're stranded in space after a sort of battle that has caused your shipmates to abandon ship and whatnot, because you told them to. So that's it for today.